بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واتل عليهم نبأ ابني آدم بالحق إذ قربا قربانا فتقبل من أحدهما ولم يتقبل من الآخر قال لأقتلنك قال إنما يتقبل الله من المتقين. لئن بسطت إلي يدك لتقتلني ما أنا بباسط يدي إليك لأقتلك إني أخاف الله رب العالمين. إني أريد أن تبوء بإثمي وإثمك فتكون من أصحاب النار وذلك جزاء الظالمين. فطوعت له نفسه قتل أخيه فقتله فأصبح من الخاسرين. فبعث الله غرابا يبحث في الأرض ليريه كيف يواري سوءة أخيه قال أن أكون مثل هذا الغراب فأواري سوءة أخي فأصبح من النادمين. من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا ومن أحياها فكأنما أحيا الناس جميعا. ولقد جاءتهم رسلنا بالبينات ثم إن كثيرا منهم بعد ذلك في الأرض لمسرفون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم ولا تجسسوا ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا بعضكم بعضا لا يحب أحدكم أن يأكل لحم أخيه ميتا فكرهتموه واتقوا الله إن الله تواب رحيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. صدق الله العظيم.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول صلوا في رحالكم صلوا في رحالكم الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Good. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي لا تراه العيون ولا يصفه الواصفون ولا تخالطه الظنون ولا يخشى الدوائر، يعلم عدد قطر الأمطار وعدد ورق الأشجار وعدد ما أظلم عليه الليل وما أشرق عليه النهار، ولا تواري منه سماء سماء ولا أرض أرضا ولا جبل ما في وعره ولا بحر ما في قعره. اللهم أنت أحق من عبد وأحق من ذكر وأنصر من ابتغي وأرأف من ملك وأجود من أعطى وأوسع من سئل. أنت الملك لا شريك لك وأنت الفرد لا ند لك، كل شيء هالك إلا وجهك، لن تطاع إلا بإذنك ولن تعصى إلا بعلمك، تطاع فتشكر وتعصى فتغفر. القلوب لك مفضية والسر عندك علانية، الحلال ما أحللت والحرام ما حرمت والدين ما شرعت والأمر ما قضيت، الخلق خلقك والأمر أمرك وأنت الله الرؤوف الرحيم. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا خير من دفنت بالقاع عظمه فطاب من طيبهن القاع والأكم، نفس الفداء لقبر أنت ساكنه فيه العفاف وفيه الجود والكرم. أنت الشفيع الذي ترجى شفاعته على الصراط ما زلت القدم، وصاحباك فلا أنساهما أبدا، من السلام عليكما ما جرى القلم. أما بعد، قال الله عز وجل في كتاب العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط. وقال عز وجل في مقام آخر إن الله يحب المقسطين. My dear friends, brothers and sisters in Islam, it is very interesting to say the least that I am speaking from the member of Unity Center, but looking straight at a camera. Usually I am honored to come here and hear the beautiful voice of Sheikh Ahmed, and if I'm lucky I get to see Sheikh Muhammad Masmari. But today I'm looking at a camera, but whichever means we have, we still got to convey the message, and we still got to do our job that Allah has entrusted us to do. So we are here today, and hopefully soon enough we will see you together in the masjid, and I'll be back again with this masjid full again, and to see all of you brothers and sisters in Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives an example which today I want to elaborate on in the Quran, and this is the example of the two trees. And I will not be, in my 20 minutes of the talk that I have today, I will not be able to elaborate on all the minute details, but hopefully the two trees, which we only speak about one tree, will give us some perspective, will give us some idea, will give us some background and foundation on how we should live and how we should react within the times that we're living in today. Allah says, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثْلًا كَلِمَةً طَيِّبَةً كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. It's not. أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Somebody just said that the technician was telling me about the voice. Hopefully everyone can hear me and see me wherever you are. He says about the kalima tayyiba, the firm and correct belief that a person has in his heart or her heart. The kalima tayyiba, which mufassirin say, which is la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, or it could be the knowledge of Allah, the knowledge of deen, Islam itself. The example of this is like a pure tree, كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ, a pure tree. Not just it's pure because the tree is beautiful, but its roots are pure, the tree is pure, the fruits are pure. أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ. And it's so firm that nothing, no wind, no circumstance, nothing in this world can shake it. And because it's so rooted in the ground, nothing can make this tree fall down. أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ. وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. And how deep it is in the roots, it bears fruits for those that are seeing the tree. You don't get to see the roots. The roots are firm in the ground. But you get to benefit from the shade of this tree. You get to benefit from the fruits of this tree. And the fruits of this tree are not only, this tree is not only bearing fruits in the day, but it's day and night. This tree it's not seasonal. Rather, the fruits of this tree are, in every season you can benefit from the fruits of this tree. أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء. تؤتي أكلها كل حين بإذن ربها. Allah says the one who wants to benefit from this tree can benefit at all times, whichever season, during the day or at night. The person who wants to benefit from this tree can benefit. When Mufassirin talk about this example, they say, what does this mean? What does this example actually mean? Brothers and sisters in Islam, today we're talking about, and what we've seen in Minneapolis with George Floyd. I mean, I don't want to be repetitive. Khatibs, lecturers, speakers have spoken about it, and I recommend you and encourage you to listen to them. Imam Zayd Shakir has a very good narrative about this. Imam Dawood Walid spoke about this many times. Sheikh Umar Sulaiman, even him, listen to what they're saying, and I support what they're saying. But I'm not going to repeat what they're saying. Rather, I'm going to just bring a different angle on this. And so we have so much talk about, and this is completely unacceptable, and something has to change, and people are speaking about it. So I'm not going to be repetitive once again. Rather, I'm going to shine a different light that I remember when Kobe Bryant died, and again, has nothing to do with this death because they're two different things, but I remember one of my sheikhs, because I was a huge, and I'm going to be very honest with the brothers and sisters who are watching, as a youngster growing up, I mean, I was a huge follower, supporter of these people. I used to live my life, my basketball game off of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and when he passed away, even though I was a sheikh, even though I had knowledge, it hurt me to a point where I couldn't leave my house for a few days. It hurt, it really hurt. The fact that this man passed away in a helicopter crash before, and the whole idea of, what's going to happen to him in Akhirah, it hurt me. And I remember the first khutbah I had to give after that, my teacher said to me, listen, channel that energy, channel that emotions you have for all those people in the world who are dying, channel it for them. The sympathy, the tears, the brokenheartedness that you have, channel it and use it for those people as well. So yes, right now there is this, again, because of what we've seen, it's on video. It's not like how some of the people are saying, it's not like racism has increased, but it's just being, right now it's just being recorded. That's all it is. So we see it on live, we're seeing it on camera. So because of that, our emotions are stirred up. Let's use let's channel these emotions that we have stirred up right now for justice and talk about something else as well. When we are living in this world, in this ayah that everyone quotes in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, comes 16 times. Surah Al-Ma'idah is one of the last surahs that were revealed in the Quran. Surah Al-Ma'idah speaks to you and I. Muslims who are been Muslims for a long time, born Muslims, it has 16 different commands. Abdullah bin Mas'ud says, whenever you hear Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, then pay attention because this is for you. And it talks about details. One thing we miss out a lot is when Allah, this ayah that we quote, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawamina lillah. Be people who are upright, stand for justice. But the first thing Allah mentions is lillah. Don't forget the right. ميثاقه الذي واثقكم به. Right? أوفوا بالعقود. The whole surah starts, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, أوفوا بالعقود. There is, as a human being, those around us, not just humans, but animals, creatures. The Prophet was walking by, and a bird who complained about people taking her children. The Prophet had empathy towards that bird. We see in Bani Israel that a woman, or in some hadith, a man who showed mercy and empathy and sympathy towards a thirsty dog got forgiven. But عذبت في بني إسرائيل عذبت امرأة في بني إسرائيل في هرة. We also see the contrary, that a woman in Bani Israel was punished because of a cat, because she tied this cat to the pillar. لا هي أطعمتها ولا هي تركتها تأكل من حشاش الأرض. Because this woman did not have mercy for this cat, that she tied it to a pillar. Neither did she feed this cat, neither did she let this cat go outside on her own to fetch food for herself. Because of this lack of sympathy and mercy in this woman's heart, Allah punished her for that. So the fact is, this is unacceptable. Now, when we talk about human rights, Allah talks about one step before that. He said, listen, the first right between you and anybody is the right between you and Allah. It's the right between you and Allah. You know, اعدلوا أقرب للتقوى. In this ayah, Allah says, be just, it's because it's nearer to taqwa. And when the Prophet spoke about taqwa, where did he point his finger? Did he point his finger there? Or did he point his finger here? He says, at-taqwa hahuna, asluha thabit. Piety and your rights with Allah is here. It's in the privacy of your home, right? Man hurima al-usul, hurima al-wusul. A person whose foundation in the roots are not strong, then what can this person provide outside? What can this person do to bring justice and difference in this world? A person who cannot be just and fair with their family. A person who is not just with the rights of Allah. Allah calls us, and I will say this again. Listen to Imam Zaid Shakir. Listen to Imam Dawood Walid. Listen to Sheikh Umar Sulaiman. Listen to some of these other great scholars who are speaking about this, and I stand with them. I'm not going to be repetitive. But at the same time, when we talk about Salahuddin Ayyubi rahimahullah walking into Palestine, and as a Fatih, after 70 years of oppression, this was not a man who was an ordinary man. When we talk about him, we're talking about him, yes, he was a great leader. Yes, he was a person riding that horse. This man never missed tahajjud in his entire life. Recorded. This man would pray takbir ula. You know how hard it is to pray with the first takbir when you're a musafir? When you are a musafir traveling, you're excused to do jama'. And according to some madahib, you're excused to pray 2 rak'ahs. And this person was traveling throughout most of his life, but he still never missed the first takbir ula. When we talk about these people, that's the mercy and the help of Allah came with them, because they brought so much benefit to mankind, because in their homes, in their privacy, and in their treaty, in the pact with Allah, they were just. If we want to bring justice outside our home, are we just inside our home? Are we just with our wife? When we walk in, is the spouses just to each other? When we walk into, is it justice to walk into our homes after 10 hours while we're on, and we walk into our house and we're looking at our phones, talking to our wife but on our phone? Is it justice for our parents that children walk into their homes and they're more worried about their Instagram feed, Facebook and Twitter than they are about their parents? Is that justice? Is it justice that when it's Fajr Salah time, we stay up all night playing video games and then sleep at 5 o'clock and miss Dhuhr? Is that justice? Is it justice to put the Quran away after the month of Ramadan and it's 2 weeks into Shawwal and we remembered that we didn't open the Quran for the last 2 weeks? Is that justice? Is it justice to pray Taraweeh and Nafil in the month of Ramadan and then forget about bowing our head in front of Allah afterwards? Is it just that when Allah calls us towards Salah every single day, 5 times a day, we do not kneel in front of Him? Is that just? Is that justice? So for us to provide benefit to mankind, you know, there's a proverb in Arabic. You people, you know, the people who are watching know it better than me. فَاقِدُ الشَّيْء لَا يُعْطِيهِ. A person who's deprived of something cannot give it. If someone's asking you for apples, you don't have it, how can you provide it? Right? So my humble appeal to all of us, to channel this, you know, when I watch these videos and I'm crying, my heart's broken. First of all, channel this towards this. أَصْلُهَا ثَابِت. That we're firm on our deen. It's not something that's, you know, if the branch of human rights, or if the branch of financial responsibility, all those different things that come in Surah Ma'idah, if those branches are cut off from the tree, then those branches are not going to bear any fruits. But as long as it's connected with that tree, and we just as strongly we stand for justice outside of our homes, we stand like that for justice in our homes, then you will see change. Then you will see the change. Look at Sahaba. Look, there was tyranny and there was oppression before we were born. There was oppressive regimes before we ever came to this world. It's recorded in the history books. Look at the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. Look at the Prophet ﷺ himself. How they combated these regimes. And how these regimes and oppressors, you know, إِنَّ الْمُلُوكِ إِذَا دَخَلُوا قَرْيَةً أَفْسَدُوهَا وَجَعَلُوا عِزَّةَ أَهْلِهَا أَذِلَّةً. Before Islam, whenever kings would walk in, this is something that happens all the time. The Mughals walked into Baghdad, the Mughals, the Mongolians. After all these years of being oppressed, when they finally came to Iraq as the conquerors, when they finally came in as the ones with authority, they did not leave the animals alone. Genghis Khan, his son or one of his relatives, was killed in a city called Kandahar. And he made sure there was a battalion surrounding the entire city, because now he's coming from a point of authority. And he made sure every creature that was in that city felt the pain that he felt when his relative was killed in that city. But that was not the case when Salahuddin Ayyubi rahimahullah walked back into Palestine. That was not the case when Umar ibn Khattab walked into Palestine and how in Palestine, and how he embraced those who were there. That was not the case when the Prophet walked into Makkah al-Mukarramah from a point of authority. These people were deep rooted in their faith with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These people, since they were deep rooted, Allama Iqbal in Shikwa, he talks about, this is a long poem, and I wish there's a translation of Shikwa in Arabic. I wish you guys can read it too. In Shikwa, he speaks about, oh Allah, he's talking about our forefathers. He said, oh Allah, the companions, our forefathers were the ones, because of their efforts, ek hi saf mein khade ho gaye Mahmud aur Ayaz. Because of their efforts, inequality left the surface of this earth. The King Mahmud stood with his servant Ayaz every single day in the same row, did sajda, and there was no such thing as inequality. Because these people were just in their homes. Surah Al-Hujurat, a surah that all of us should read and reflect upon, talks about rights within our family, within our community. Allah says, Inna Allah yuhibbul muqsitin. Among those people who Allah loves in the Quran, Allah declares love for those who are fair. And when He talks about this fairness over here, I want you to read this. He's not talking about, sometimes we think of these ideas of being just and fair as something that it cannot be achieved. Remember that fruit, that tree that's beautiful, does it bear fruits right away? Is it instant gratification? A person who, that some people refer this to Mansur, or the king, and some people refer to others, but it's a tariqi riwayah. That king was traveling down the road and he saw an old man planting an olive tree. Just right now, just digging up the soil and planting the seeds for this olive tree. And those of us who are farmers and those of us who know anything about olive trees, it's not something you can plant and it's going to come and bear fruits instantly. It'll take years before it can give you any benefit. And this king looks at him and says, brother, your one foot is in the grave and one foot's outside the grave. And you're planting an olive tree, like you're just planting the seed right now. And you know what he said? He said, if the people before us thought like you, then we will never be able to eat olives. The fact is, we have to do something for those who are coming after us, right? So this is not something, it's not something you will find that will happen overnight. But the things that we have control over in our homes, in our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in that pact that we have with Him. And Allah is saying, oh believers, fulfill that pact and be just to Allah, with Allah, for Allah, right? If you want to bring anything in this world, start it in your homes first. Start it in our homes. Start it in the privacy of our own communities, in our masjids, in our centers. And then of course, continue doing what we're doing outside our homes, but never think for 1 second, if we don't bring it inside our homes, that it will benefit outside. Because that branch that's cut off from that tree will not bear fruits, will not be beneficial. In that ayah in Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah talks about, He's saying that a third person, He's saying that two people are fighting, فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمَا. Then go, and if these two brothers in your community, two sisters in your community, two families in your community have a problem with each other, it may not be your problem. It may not be your problem. It might be just few people in the back of the masjid that walk in and you're leading salah and you have no idea these two people have an issue. Allah in Surah Al-Hujurat is putting the responsibility on your shoulders. He's not talking about those two people having an argument. Even the ayah before, إِن جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَإٍ. Allah is not talking about that person who brought the news, about how bad he's doing. Rather, Allah speaks about how you receive the news. There's a difference. How he brought or she brought, that's not the point of discussion right now. The point of discussion is, what did you do with the news when you received it? Allah gives clear instructions. Over here, similarly, Allah's not talking about if their fight is something petty. Oh, you never gave me a wedding gift, or you never invited me to that wedding, or some business deal that went wrong. He's not talking about that. That's irrelevant right now. If you see, Allah says in this ayah, when two people have a difference of opinion, are not speaking to each other, it is your responsibility. You not being there, you not knowing is not an excuse for you not helping. It is your responsibility to find out what's going on there and then to reconcile and be the one who's the C, A, B, and you're the C. You come in and say, listen, and put your head down and work and dua and cry for them to get them back together. Ali bin Abi Talib used to say, I live for moments to reconcile between two brothers and spouses. If a spouse that comes to your office and they're having marital problems, wallahi, to me, ulama and imams have different opinions, but to me, one of the most joyful moments of my life is if a husband and wife walks to the door with a 2-year-old child and a 5-month-old in the car seat, and they both can't get along, and somehow, some way, Allah puts the right words on your tongue, and it penetrates into one of their hearts, and then you find them 3-4 years later living happily, have another child. That brings joy to your heart, that your words or something you did, even though it was nothing you did, it was from Allah, but because of that, you reconcile between this. You can't say that's not my problem. Imagine if imams and ulama start saying to, or marriage counselors start saying to husband and wife who walks to the door and says, it's not my problem, my wife and my children are perfect. That's the problem with our ummah today, where we say that this is not my problem, this is our problem. The Prophet is saying that the believers are like one body. If your finger starts hurting, you're not going to cut it off. You got to figure out how to help and heal it. And that's why I conclude by saying, as a Muslim community, brothers and sisters, forgive my language. When I was 19 years old, I first started working in HR in one of the healthcare facilities in Michigan, not far from here. And I had a set of questions to ask everyone who walked through the door. I cheated. I used to ask more. The person used to tell me, ask these questions. I used to start asking those questions. But I used to ask a few more just because I wanted to. And no one would find out. So when someone walked through the door, I would ask those questions. But one question I would always ask is, when I would find out their previous employer, okay, you worked over here, such and such place, okay. For some reason, it used to come to my mind to ask, who was your boss there? What was the owner's name? And because it was healthcare field, and we were born and brought up and raised in a healthcare field environment, we associate with healthcare professionals. So, we kind of knew that most of these companies, medical practices, urgent cares, healthcare facilities are owned by someone you might know, or a Muslim. So if that person would say, like Muhammad, or would say it's owned by, a Muslim sister or a Muslim brother, or the boss was a Muslim, I would always ask, how was your experience there? How was your experience there? You know what? What's so interesting about the ayah of justice in Surah An-Nisa, those ulama and huffaz are sitting here watching, will tell us, Man kana yuridu thawab al-dunya fa 'inda Allahi thawab ad-dunya wal-akhirah. It's right before the ayah of justice. What does that mean? Why is it so interconnected? You see, I would ask, what was your experience there? You know what? Wallahi, without exaggeration, 9 out of 10 would say the worst experience. Horrible experience. It wasn't a good experience. Now you and I are going to stand on this khutbah telling people about deen and Islam, talking about da'wah, where we had that opportunity that just slipped through our hands. We were from a point of authority. We could have brought iftars, we could have brought food, we could have done anything. One moment of change, one moment. I remember meeting the most racist people in a bank in a city close by in Michigan. Wallahi, they would hold $10 checks for 2 weeks. Or walk in, a $10 check, they would hold it. And I said, man, how can we combat this? Am I going to start, standing outside, reporting them to authority? I said, you know what, let's give it a shot. The way to the heart is to the stomach. Let's feed them some food. And I figured out that they take lunch, so we started giving them lunch once in a while. The people of that bank, the tellers there, the people over there, they started to love Islam so much so that every single time something negative happened about Islam in the world, they would ask me to come in at 4:45 before the bank closes, and I would sit with them and they would ask me direct questions, and they pledged to me that they will never listen or hear news about Islam from any other source but me. Just one gesture. It was just food that might have cost $200, which I still do throughout. We still do it. I'm sure many of us do it. But when I was 19 years old and I heard 9 out of 10 people had bad experiences with their employers or bosses, and it was always like, man, they were so greedy for money. Man, they never gave me any time off. They never gave me this is what Allah is talking about in this ayah in the justice. What happens? We failed the society over here. The Sahaba were fixated on akhirah. They were ready to compromise some dollars of this world. They were ready to compromise the luxury of this world because they were like that and their roots were firm on this. They were able to benefit those around them. And today, as a Muslim community, we cannot fail the next generation. It is our responsibility. We see, well, and I'm going to conclude by saying this. Alhamdulillah, Allah has given us a soft spot in our heart. We see an animal even thirsty, we feel bad. We see someone thirsty, a picture of a thirsty child somewhere all across the world, we look at that picture, we feel bad. But imagine these people, if we don't show them the true colors of Islam, if someone leaves this world and is thirsty forever in akhirah, then what? So that is why it is our responsibility not to just be fighting for justice outside of our homes, but applying that within our homes, applying that within our relationship with Allah. If you are not, I'm not saying start this, then do this, but I'm saying do it simultaneously. If Allah is saying don't do this, we shouldn't. We know this was wrong. This was unacceptable. But there are things that we are doing that if the Prophet was here among us, he would say that's unacceptable. Sallallahu. If Umar ibn Khattab was standing here today, he would say that's unacceptable because Allah does not deserve that from you. Allah is divine and there's divine rights. If the Sahaba were here today and saw the children, how they're dealing with their parents, those same children who are ready to go out and spend hours and hours on the internet going back and forth with people who are going against their beliefs and doing all these different things, those same children have not had a meaningful conversation with their parents. How is that justice, and how will this child bring justice in this world that we're living in? How will this child benefit mankind? So these two things go hand in hand. The roots are our relationship with Allah and the divine rights that Allah has put on our shoulders. And once we can use this energy that we have to also channel towards there. Water that plant as well while we're watering the plant of things around us. May Allah make us among those who are just with our rights with Allah. We are just with the human rights. We are just with, we apply equality and justice and fairness in every walk of our life. Not one over the other, but every walk of our life. And remember, truly, those people who are effective, who have the best relationship and fulfill their rights with Allah, those people, they don't even have to speak. Musa alayhi salam went to the biggest tyrant. He had no resources but his staff, to a point where he did not even have the resources of speaking because he would stutter every time he would speak. Harun is afsah minni lisan. Harun, Allah, the Prophet, when Musa asked for Harun, he says, oh Allah, grant me the companionship of Harun so he can be with me, so he can speak better than me. But who was Kalim? Harun was fasih, but who was Kalim? Musa was Kalim. Musa was the one that spoke directly to Allah. That tells you that you don't have to have anything, but get your roots and your foundation down, and Allah will bring the branches out, and Allah will bring the fruits out. As long as you keep on watering those roots with you and Allah, people might sit here, how can I help someone all the way there? Start doing this and you will see you will become a benefit while you're living, and after that person who plants that tree stays there forever. People still benefit from that tree. People still benefit from that shade of that tree. Allah makes us among those who benefit mankind. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الصفا ما بعد اللهم لا يصلوا على النبي يا ايها الذين صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد الامي وعلى اله وسلم تسليما اللهم انصر لسان المسلمين اللهم انصر من نصر محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وجعلنا منهم معهم اللهم اخذل من خذل محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منه ولا معهم اللهم مرضانا وعاف مبتلانا وارحم موتانا انك حقنا على كل شيء قدير امين رب العالمين ان الله يامر بالعدل والاحسان وايتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون واذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله تعالى اعلى واولى واتم واكبر اقيموا الصلاه Please make your line straight. Done. All right, brothers and sisters, sallu fi rihalikum. We'll see you inshallah next time I come.